Welcome to the Healthpreneur podcast. My name is Yuri Elkaim, New York Times bestselling author, former professional athlete, and founder of Healthpreneur, the world's leading company helping health and fitness experts start and scale high-end coaching businesses. If you want to attract more clients, learn how to convert them without feeling salesy, and deliver an amazing program for them on the back end, if you want to be inspired by what others just like you have gone through and how you can do the same no matter what life throws your way, then you are in the right place, because every single week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're going to be bringing you the best to help you take your knowledge and expertise to the next level with your health or fitness coaching business. And if you enjoy what you see and hear and would like to take your business to the next level, then I invite you to check out our free online training over at healthpreneurgroup.com/training. And for now, let's get into today's episode. All right, guys, welcome. Yuri Elkaim here, and this is a special edition of the podcast because now we are starting to bring on some of our HBA, our Health Business Accelerator clients, to strategize. We're going to give you a sense of what goes on behind the scenes in terms of figuring out how we can make their offer better, how we can fix part of their business, their pipeline. And so today, in this first installment of this new addition to the podcast, I'm very grateful to be honored and grateful for having David Zachary on the line with us. And just so you guys know who David is, he is an ADHD coach, and he transforms lives on four fronts: what people eat, how they sleep, what they think, and how they move their body and their activities. So I'm excited to have you on the line with us here, and we're going to get into whatever we need to get into. And if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, hopefully you'll get a lot of value out of this as well. So let's do this, David.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, let's just jump right in. That sounds like a fun way to do it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let me see what I've got right now. Can you see my screen, or are we sharing your screen?
You can click the share your screen button, I think, and that should work okay.
All right. Let me get in here.
And if you're listening to this on the podcast and you have no idea what we're talking about, just bear with us. I'll try to bring some auditory perspective to this.
Yeah. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So what I have going on is, so one of the things you have, Yuri, going on is, one of the pages you have is creating an escape plan. And this is one of the starting pieces before you get the webinar created and all this kind of stuff. What I've been working on is generating just creating the milestone, creating the steps for each of these milestones. And it's really interesting. When I went through this, I found that I was fleshing out a lot more stuff because, as you mentioned, Yuri, that I have, kind of a 4-step process. And in the form, it says, well, come up with like maybe 7 steps or something like that. And it was kind of interesting because when I came out with the 4 sort of processes, what you eat, what you think, how you sleep, and what you do, I really was able to divide up some of these processes into something a lot more interesting.
Cool.
So you can kind of see here that I've got the escape from is the chaotic, moms with their kids. They've got an ADD kid. They don't want to put their kid on Ritalin necessarily, or maybe they've tried it. They're putting them on Ritalin.
Yep.
They're just trying to figure out how to do it. How do you make life work with that?
And just so clear, so your program is targeting parents and helping them with their kids who have ADHD as a natural, better way instead of using medication, correct?
Yes. Well, actually, I'm not necessarily opposed to medication, but working more in harmony, working in conjunction, just trying to get all the other things out going. Because one thing I've found in my process is that, medication works and it's a great and effective tool. But a lot of the information out there says that, if you have a kid with ADD, it's not because you gave them sugar. It's not because they spent so much time in front of the TV and everything else. And this is all true. However, it's also true that if you stick your kid in front of the TV for hours on end, and if you feed your kid sugar, they're not going to be doing as well.
Cool.
So why not?
sorry to cut you off there, David. For
Go ahead.
the sake of this call, so what specifically can we help you clarify or really dial in with respect to this for this call?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I'm getting off track.
That's okay. That's part of my job is to bring it back on track because we have about 25, 30 minutes. So I want to make the most of our time.
Okay, that's awesome. So what I'm trying to figure out where to do now is I'm actually trying to put this dream come true system. Sorry, I'm trying to put the escape plan structure into the dream come true system. Where do I go next? How do I take this piece and put it into the dream come true system so that I can move forward? Because I'm really getting stopped and bogged down and mired with just the minutia.
So for everyone listening, if you're listening to this on iTunes, you can actually go over to our YouTube channel. Just type in Healthpreneur and you'll find it. We'll have a whole playlist for these video episodes of the podcast. And what David's referring to is his Dream Come True system, which is essentially your coaching program and how that's all built out to help your clients. So one of the exercises we do is identifying what are the core kind of landmarks that are going to move someone from where they are to where they want to be. And then we're going to break those down into smaller milestones. And what this does is it kind of goes from a high level perspective down to a very granular perspective so that you have a good idea of what you're going to be sharing throughout the content of your program. So in your case here, we've got 7 milestones. We've got chaotic life with child out of control, arrive into a balanced ADHD friendly life. And you've got 7 milestones in between there. Now, depends. So let me ask you this, David. Is your program linear? Like, by that I mean, does somebody coming to the program, do they have to do step 1 before they do step 2, before they do step 3, or does it all kind of fit together simultaneously?
That's actually a really good question. That's one of the things I'm trying to tease out right now is because one of the things I'm finding is a lot of them are simultaneous. Sure. It's hard to almost tease out, how do you clean up your diet? How do you add nutrients and not do them at the same time?
Yeah. So one of the things, for instance, in our Health Business Accelerator program, it's actually very simple because it's a linear program. You do step 1 before you do step 2, before you do step 3. In that case, it's very logically in your mind, we can see the sequential order very easily, step by step. In this case, and this is actually the case with a lot of programs, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. I'm just giving you, there's 2 models. So in our case, we have a linear model, and in a lot of our clients' cases, they have a linear model as well. But in your case, and in a lot of cases too, you're going to have what we call a genius model. And a genius model is going to be, and I'll just kind of draw this out for you. We'll kind of brainstorm some ideas here, is how you can graphically represent what it is you're doing in a way, first and foremost, that you understand it. And then you can clarify this and present it to your prospective clients in a way where they're like, wow, that is super clear. So let's look at this for a second. So you talked about 4, actually, you know what, I'm going to if I can share my screen at the same time, I think I can do both, yeah, which is actually pretty cool. All right.
Great.
Okay. So I'm going to just draw this out and give you a sense of what I'm talking about here, because if we take your approach from, let's say, ADHD to no ADHD, let's just, obviously that's maybe not accurate, but let's just say for the sake of this discussion, we're kind of going from not happy over here to a lot happier over here, okay? So how are we going to do that? In your case, what we're doing here is we're taking the Dream Come True system, but in the Dream Come True system, there's got to be some type of proprietary process, right? We talk about this. And so what I'm talking about in your case is what's called the genius model. And this is, you could think about it as your proprietary process. It's pretty much the same thing. But in this case, it's not linear. So it's not step by step. It's kind of all together, as you mentioned. So we have, in your case, let's just look at 4 pieces to this puzzle, okay? And there's a lot of different ways we can graphically represent this, but just for me in my mind, this is kind of what's coming to mind first. So you have think, eat, you got move, and what was the other one?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah, think, eat. Yeah.
Is move an accurate word, or activity would be better?
Yeah, move is fine. Yep,
Okay,
that
cool.
works.
So what we want to do here is we want a graphical representation of what it is you do. Okay. So does this make sense? So think, eat, move, sleep. Those are the 4 major blocks that you walk people through, right?
Yes.
Now
yes.
you mentioned and you showed on the screen that you kind of broke it down to 7 milestones. If possible, can we keep it at 4 and then maybe work within those to break those out a little bit?
Sure, I could probably rewrite that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because sometimes the simpler solution is usually the better one. So if we can go from 7 to 4, it's easier for the prospective client to get a grasp on, oh, okay, cool, this is how this works. So if we think about think, eat, move, sleep, now we have some type of model that we can bring together, at least in our minds, and show our prospective clients about how this might work. Okay, so we have 4 categories, and there's different ways of graphically representing this. So for instance, with our mastermind, we do 3 circles that are attract, convert, deliver, and each of those intersections represents a different perspective. And then in the middle, we have systemize and scale. So that's one of the ways we graphically show our genius model. So what do you think, what can we add in your case? Like, what are some elements we can add here in your dream come true system to flesh this out, to make it a little bit more clear, I guess, for you, but also for your clients? Is there anything we can add to this or clarify around this to do that?
Well, I think one of the elements that is I would say maybe like a capstone perhaps is like the testing part.
Sure.
You know, where's our baseline? Where are you at? Because every person's going to come in a little bit different. ADD is all over the place anyway for people, and some people can do this, some people have this, some people have that. There's a lot of different types. So the testing is one of the things that I think is probably the starting point. You do the hair tissue mineral analysis. You do the physical assessment test. You do the test of like, how are you sleeping at night? You do the test, you know, what are your thoughts like?
So everybody who enrolls with you has to go through that test, right?
Yes.
So that's perfect. So that would be the great example. So the person starts, let's say it's day 0. And the first thing they're going to do in part of the on-ramp or the onboarding process is they're going to do a test. They're going to, you know, obviously you'll get the data, you'll get whatever results you get from that test. From that test, then what happens?
From the test, then you can figure out, that's when the customization starts. Okay. So that's where I'm starting to get confused, because it's like, okay, well, it's hard to make a one size fits all for this sort of a thing.
Sure.
But I think I can make maybe a 5 sizes fits all sort of thing, or a 7 sizes fits all sort of thing. Yeah. So depending on that test, it would go into some of these subcategories of, okay, well, you think this way, you eat this way, you move this way, you sleep that way.
Sure. Because what you're saying, and for everyone listening, if you're in the business, if you're a naturopath, functional medicine doctor doing some kind of lab tests with your clients, and let me ask you this, David, you probably see clusters of patterns develop over time, right? Like people generally will fall into one of a few categories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what you want to do, and this is the beautiful thing, excuse me, about a leverage coaching model, is it can be a pure group coaching model. Everyone does the same thing, but in your case, it's kind of a hybrid where it's we'll talk about that in a second, but what we're starting with is how do we individualize and customize it, yet still keep it within predetermined templates that tend to show up more often. So in this case, we might have, you said 5 buckets, for instance, that they might fall into?
Yeah. Let's just come up with 5. Yeah, that sounds great.
So we got 5 possible buckets. Those are supposed to be buckets. All right, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 based on the testing. So regardless of which bucket people fall into, is there going to be standard fundamentals that everyone would follow or benefit from above and beyond the customization in terms of think, eat, move, and sleep?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So, you know, like for example, the sleep, standardizing your sleep is huge.
Yep.
And so that's one that everybody should be doing.
Perfect. So the reason I asked that is because this over here, like these 4 boxes, these are going to be the fundamentals of the training component of your program. So just like we have the online portal with our different modules, you'll have different modules that can be video, they can be PDF, they can be whatever you want. And because everyone, there's whatever you're going to say over and over and over again, no matter who the client is, those are going to be the things that you teach in those different modules. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So for instance, we would have like module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4. Now, they don't necessarily have to be sequential. So perhaps there is a higher level structure. So for instance, if we look at, because we can't say, all right, just do module 1 about thinking, and then just do module 2 about eating, and so forth and so on, right? Because it's not linear. So is there a way to create the curriculum in a way where we address think, eat, move, and sleep each step of the way? So for instance, this week we're going to do this, and the next week we're going to do this.
Well, that's kind of where it gets tricky, because I think the best way to do it is to actually isolate out each of these as a unit. But then it seems to me like when we're looking at this model, I would think you'd have think group sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, eat group sub 1 through 7 or something like that, move group, sub 1 through 3, and sleep group 1 through 4 or something like that.
And that would be based on the buckets they fall into from the testing? Or is that, okay. So that's one of the ways you can do this, is you can say, for think, there's going to be, let's say if we have 5 buckets, there's going to be 5 different levels of the content in think, 5 different levels of the content in eat, move, and sleep. And each one would be, listen, if you fall into bucket 2, then you're going to go down the track of group 2 under each one of those 4 components, right?
Right. So yeah, I think that's kind of how, like when I'm looking at this, that probably is the best way to go, is you have the test, come back with the test results. Okay, well, you scored this points, or, this is what this says about that. And then maybe it'll be a consultation at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we can say, okay, you want to see webinar, this, and this, and create this series based on which of those 5 categories they would fall into.
Yep. So I'll give you a great example. So a friend of mine, she runs a cleanse, which has done, I think, more than $7 million in the past couple of years. And the way she does it is you fill out an assessment, and it's online. So it's not like saliva testing and stuff like that, but it's based on the answers symptomatically to your questions. You're going to go down one of 3 tracks. And based on those tracks, you're sent a specific kit of supplements and specific trainings for your specific path. And so that's kind of similar to what we're talking about here. Is you've got, let me just clean this up a little bit. So you've got path 1 that will go this way. You've got path 2, you've got path 3, and so forth. And each one will address the 4 components: eat, move, think, and sleep, right? And now it's just a matter of you to determine, okay, for path 1 or bucket 1, what would I tell someone to do with respect to their food, movement, thinking, and sleeping if they came back from the test and fell into this bucket or this path?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I think that's it. That does make sense.
Because then now you've got 5 tracks, right? 5 paths based on however many buckets you want to do. And the content may or may not be very similar. But the good news is that it doesn't take a lot of time. Excuse me. I just joked on an almond, I think. It doesn't take a lot of time to shoot that content. It's like if you're shooting a video on path 1, you can just very quickly make an adjustment, shoot the video for path 2 at pretty much in the same day, right? So it's not a huge amount of extra work to do this. But the nice thing is that when you're speaking to people on the phone, you're telling them, listen, based on our initial testing, we'll be going into one of a few tracks that is specific to your needs and going to move you to your goals a lot more effectively than if we had everyone doing the same thing regardless of their customization needs.
So when I start recording this and start making it, do I create the path 1 system, then create the path 2 system, or would I go, let's look at each section of path 1 through 5, and then go to the move section of path 1 through 5?
Whatever you want. I mean, it depends on how you create content. I'll just stop my share here for a second. So it depends on how you create your content. Like the most important thing that we do in module 1 is our goal is to get you super clear on just visualizing what this looks like, because once you have the framework and the skeleton mapped out, it becomes a lot easier to create the content, right? Mm-hmm. So if you know that you're gonna have an eat, move, think, and sleep component or several components under each of those for each path, let's say you've got 5 paths, 3 components under each one, 5 times 4 is 20 times 3 variations is 60. So you're gonna shoot 60 little micro videos and they'll all be placed into the respective paths. And so when someone comes in, they're not doing 60 different things. They're doing 1 path, 4 sections or 4 components. Each one has specific exercises, actions to move them closer to that desired outcome. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I think that really helps clarify it for me. That actually is probably the thing I needed to break through to the next level, because it just felt like spaghetti at some point.
And this is like, it is tough. Like if you don't have your program dialed in, mapped out, this is where some really important thinking has to come in, because what you'll find is that once you have this clarity, it's like everything just happens so much faster, because you know exactly where people are ending up, and that all feeds back into your marketing. Because then even on the marketing side, even the webinar, you can talk about how there's no one size fits all approach to ADHD, how customization is really important. And then that makes it easier to sell your program, because now you're offering that individualization, that customization that most people are not going to get elsewhere. So that makes your program more valuable. And now people see like, yeah, like he's speaking exactly to what I need, or my son needs, or my daughter needs. This sounds awesome. So I think, I think that's great. I think that's, I'm happy we're able to get a bit of clarity around this. So does that kind of resolve a bit of that issue around the Dream Come True system for you?
Well, I think that really does help solve a lot of it. The other part I was really having a challenge with was naming. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I'm really stuck into, because to me, I'm perfectly content with saying section 1, module A.
Sure.
I don't know if that has the catchiness.
Sure. This is something that a lot of our clients struggle with, because naming is not, like, coming up with really cool names is not second nature to most people. So I've been having to come up with names for a long time, and I've figured out some mnemonics to help with that. So one of the exercises you have in the portal, actually with the Dream Come True system and the downloads, is the be, do, have, and feel naming formula. Have you gone through that worksheet yet?
Yeah, I'm actually working through it, and that's actually part of where I got stopped, because it was like, oh, I've got this big pile of spaghetti.
Sure.
How do I come up with names for all these things? And when I started thinking about this, like, I wouldn't, if I was a client, I wouldn't want to have somebody throwing out 4 dozen names at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great! I've got these flashy names.
So out of the ones you've come up with, what are like 1 or 2 or 3 that just kind of jump to top of mind?
Well, one of the things that's really interesting that's fleshed out from this is a video game theme to it. Mm-hmm. So I think about the old Nintendo, like video games, like Wings of Heaven or something like that. There's this kind of a thing. There's, I think, one of them was just like Gamify Life or something like that. But I think that's already been taken.
So so do you have the name of the program yet, or no?
No.
Okay, so the name of the program, and this is very important for everyone listening or watching to this, the name of your program should be directly related to the benefit or the outcome your client wants. So a really simple name of your program could be the ADHD solution, right? So that could be at the simplest basic level. The name of the program is the ADHD solution. Now, it doesn't have to be that, but what that does is it tells you exactly what it is, right? Or ADHD gone, right? Like I have a book, the All Day Energy Diet, the All Day Fat Burning Diet, amazing app solution. right? So the names of these programs are going to define what the outcome is that the client wants. So if we take that thinking and you go back to the be, do, have, feel naming formula. So who is this person going to be once they're done? What are they going to be able to do? What are they going to be able to, what are they going to have? What are they going to be able to, what are they going to feel? If you think of, for instance, the all-day energy diet, that would tie into both the have and feel categories. They're going to have all the energy. They're going to feel all the energy, for instance. Amazing abs solution, that is what they're going to have, amazing abs, right? So in your case, ADHD solution, that would kind of fall into the have category. They're going to have pretty much no more ADHD, right? Or, does that make sense, David?
Yeah, it feels to me like, the end result is, feeling in control. One of the things about ADD is it's like, it just feels like life happens to you and not you're in control of life. And I think there's a real feeling of control that happens when you get control of ADHD.
Yeah. And this again, usually the fewer words you use, the more time you have to think about it. And that's why naming titles and stuff like that is tough. So even if you don't have the name of your program figured out, just have the framework done. Have that framework and that roadmap done. Because as you're working on your webinar, as you're starting to piece all this stuff together, you're going to have time to think through this. You might be in the shower, you might go for a walk, you might come up with an example. Actually, one of the things we're doing for you guys is putting together a whole archive of headline and naming ideas from places like Amazon or Dr. Oz or popular magazine titles. One of the great hacks that you can use is just go to Google Images, type in a name of a magazine your clients might read, for instance, like the Dr. Oz magazine, and look at the covers, look at the titles, look at the words they're using, the copy on those titles or on those covers, because a lot of those are really, really good for naming things. Now, these are very highly paid copywriters who've been paid a lot of money to put the right words on that front page because it's going to get the most eyeballs. So I would look at, having a look at Google Images, typing in like, what would be a magazine your clients might read? Now, not the kids necessarily, but would like the Dr. Oz, would that be a relevant kind of a broad general health magazine that your people might be reading?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, so I would go Dr. Oz magazine, go into Google Images and look at what comes up. And just write down a couple ideas. Like if you see some words that come up, and it might be something that doesn't relate necessarily to ADHD, but it's a word or a phrase that you may not have thought of otherwise, just jot it down because then you can tie all that together. You can tie it all together with ADHD in a way that maybe is more compelling. But at the end of the day is when you're speaking with someone on the phone and you're saying, listen, we've got this great program, it's called X, whatever the name of the program is, they in their mind automatically should be like, that sounds amazing. That's exactly what I need, right? Does that make sense?
It does. And I think I'm, again, overcomplicating it with trying to make a video game theme to it.
Yeah. Now, inside the components of like the deliverables, right, you can then, so we have a theme, like an aviation theme, right, with our Healthpreneur status levels. We've got cadet, Top Gun, stuff like that. You can do that inside the delivery and give it a bit of a theme. If you like video games, maybe there's a theme. So you're calling, instead of calling it a training, it's called an adventure or whatever you want to, whatever language you want to give to that, you can give that inside the program. And you're just going to train people right from the get-go. Here's the language we use. Here's what this signifies. And that's how you can make it all happen. So we've got like 30 seconds to wrap this up, David, but I would love to, well, first and foremost, thank you for sharing this and being open about, what this is all, what it's all means to you and how it's all looking. Just before we finish off, I'd love to get to know from you, what's been most useful from our conversation around this?
Well, I think it did open a lot of doors. It's always nice to bounce stuff off of another person, and especially from you, Yuri. You've got a lot of good insights on this. So I think the big thing I really enjoyed about it was being able to just talk it out, tangle out the idea that the test should be the starting place, then going into the Genius model, and then finally with the naming system, just to go out and look for what people are reading and what other people are already doing on that.
Yep, there we go. Perfect. So David, thanks so much for joining us today. I hope this has been helpful for everyone watching and listening. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Hope you've had some insights and ahas from this. And again, if you want to watch the video, go back to the YouTube channel for Healthpreneur and you will find it there. And in the meantime, look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on this episode of the Healthpreneur podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, here's what I'd like you to do right now. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Healthpreneur podcast on iTunes. And while you're there, leave us a rating or review. It helps us get in front of more people and change more lives. And if you're ready to start or scale your health or fitness coaching business and want to start getting in front of more people, working with them at a higher level without trading time for money, then I invite you to check out our free 7-figure health business blueprint training, totally free right now. And you can do so at healthpreneurgroup.com/training. For now, thank you so much for joining us. Continue to be great, do great, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.